Good morning. My name is Jay Corral with Dell Technologies. Thank you for letting me share a few minutes with you today. Really what I'd like to share and talk about is how our customers are navigating the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud transition and transformation that they're seeing in the marketplace. I'd like to take a couple steps back first and talk a little bit about this digital transformation thought. We've heard a lot about this, and we may have our own conceptions and our own thoughts about what digital transformation means. But what we found is when you boil it down, digital transformation is the ability to change the way your business does business and provide services and products to your customers. We see an ever-changing landscape the ability to be faster, the ability to be more agile, the ability to drive costs out of the business and compete with startups and the big organizations that you may call your competitors. In order to do that, companies have to roll out products quicker. They have to roll out ideas faster. They have to put their technology and their products in the hands of their users through mobile devices. What we're finding is IT, traditional IT, has competition in public cloud. Why? Because customers in the business, right, more specifically, can go to a public cloud, gain the infrastructure to run new applications or to develop new applications for their business without waiting for IT. Because historically, IT has been slow. So with the birth of public cloud and the competition to internal IT then is forced to become cloud-like, right? And I'd like to just define the definition of cloud real quick, which is cloud is not a destination or a place. A lot of people think that. Really, what cloud is the ability to provide services back in an agile methodology, or we can simplify it and say, cloud is an operating model, not a place. So with the birth of public cloud, customers and companies are trying to figure out how we adopt this, right? In a recent study, what we found is 93% of the respondents said that they're currently in 2 to 3 clouds today. 80% of those respondents said that by 2022, they feel like they'll be in 5 to 8. So they understand, customers know that they're already deploying applications or deploying workloads to the cloud. Most commonly, you hear Office 365 is kind of the baseline. Everybody's moving that to Azure. But CIOs and organizations know that they have to adopt public cloud. We found that early public cloud adopters would tend to put everything out into the cloud. And now that they're 3 or 4 or 5 years into this, we're noticing that they're starting to prioritize and repatriate those workloads from public back to private. So what does that mean? Customers are going to be moving more applications and more workloads into public clouds. So we have to help our customers define what that cloud strategy looks like. So what I want to do first is kind of draw out a typical legacy IT environment, right? So you may have a data center, you may have a secondary data center, or a DR site, most folks have. And inside that, obviously you have your virtualization, you have servers, storage, backup. I guess you could call your applications, right? They're living there. And you might be replicating that to a secondary data center for disaster recovery purposes. You might even be more highly available, right? Depending on some of the application requirements. So you might be kind of going back and forth. And again, you have virtualization over here, servers, storage, backup, and your apps, right? Traditional data center of yesterday and today. So in comes public cloud, right? So you might have, let's just call this Office 365. That's a very common application, right? So you're going to adopt Microsoft's cloud and put your mail up there. and which is a very common thing, and it makes sense, and it's a good call, right? And today, that's a lot of them have. But let's look at maybe you have another opportunity here, where maybe you have an AWS S3 bucket where you're tiering some of your backups or some of your archive data into an object storage somewhere in AWS, okay? So this is kind of today, right? You have a couple clouds and you have your on-prem data center. So what happens, as the study says, as you start adding more clouds, right? So let's say you add another cloud and it's AWS, maybe it's more backup, disaster recovery, backup in the cloud. Maybe you're now bringing in Google Cloud and you're using Google Docs or Google Cloud for your applications, cloud consumption, excuse me. And you're adding all these additional clouds, public clouds, maybe you're even using some SaaS clouds. And what happens is each one of these cloud, whether it's AWS, Azure, Google, name your cloud, right? Every one of these cloud platforms have their own operating systems, tools, management, APIs, right? So for each one of these, you have your employees and your technical folks managing these disparate clouds in addition to your on-prem infrastructure. So let's just say, again, you have some workloads going to each one of these clouds, right? And once you send this workload up here, it's going to live there. And you send this one up here, it lives in Google, etc., right? The challenge is, as I mentioned, bringing that data back, right? So let's say you move a workload out into Google and AWS offers a better rate or better price, right? If you want to bring that back, you got to bring it, if you're even able to bring it back. If it's not native, you're going to have to re-platform that application or that workload, bring it back, and then re-platform it into another cloud provider. A lot of time, it's not very agile, and there's some cost associated with ingress and egress charges, right? So as you continue to add those, and everyone has disparate components to it, it can bring a lot of complexity into this. So what are we finding customers want out of this as they journey into a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud approach? I'll draw it out for you. So we're going to use the same example. Your two data centers, okay? Server, storage, network, backup, etc. And again, customers are moving to multi-cloud environments. So what we're finding is our customers want a couple of things in this multi-cloud, hybrid cloud environment. They want consistent and predictable infrastructure. And they want consistent, predictable operations. So what does that mean? With your current infrastructure, you have a lot of components, right? Three-tier architecture with disparate systems for servers, networking, storage, backup. And what our customers are finding is we need consistent and predictable infrastructure, meaning we need a single point of management. We need automation. We need simplification, consolidation, right? No longer do we have the ability to pay storage admins and network admins and backup admins and virtual VMware admins, right? What we're trying to do is we're trying to drive costs out of the business so that we can shift that into innovation, right? So what we're doing is we're finding cloud architects or converged or hyper-converged architects. And let me explain what that means. So when you talk about consistent and predictable infrastructure, this is where hyper-converged and converged infrastructure comes into play, where you're no longer managing disparate systems, but one system as an appliance, right? It's manufactured as one system, it's managed as one, it's engineered as one, supported and sustained, all as one system from your hypervisor through your backup and data protection. So you need consistent and predictable infrastructure so you can take the people out of managing that onto the higher level components of your infrastructure, as well as innovating with new applications and agility to serve the business. So then let's get back to our cloud conversation here about once you've got consistent, predictable infrastructure, you now have multiple cloud environments. So we need consistent and predictable operations as well. So what that means is this. When you have a workload that you want to send up into cloud 1, we'll call it, and you have a workload that you're going to send up into cloud 2, 3, and 4, just like we did in your traditional environment, right? But let's get back to that example of you needing to move to another cloud from a cloud. How do we do that? So when you talk about consistent operations and consistent and predictable operations, this is where VMware and the Dell EMC relationship comes into play. We're all Dell Technologies, so we have the best cloud platform married with #1 best of breed infrastructure for hyperconverged, converged, and even 3-tier. And when you bring these two together, you now have a consistent platform to be able to move workloads from cloud to cloud down to your private cloud, We call this the hybrid multi-cloud environment. You're no longer having to rely on the different operating systems and management points and the tools and the APIs and the complexity that comes with not having a consistent way of moving workloads in between your multi-cloud environment. And again, with Dell EMC and VMware, we have that ability. In another study, IDC found that CIOs, 90% of CIOs said that they are going to have some sort of on-prem infrastructure, right? But they also understand that they've got to adapt and they've got to be agile and adopt some public cloud environment. Some workloads makes total sense to put into a public cloud. Some workloads, it doesn't, depending on security and compliance, performance and latency, right? How much that workload is accessed, how fast it needs to be, how quickly it needs to be responsive. You know, what are the data gravity characteristics of those workloads, right? So with our family, we're able to help our customers in this journey. And really what I'd like to do is a couple things. One, we have a free health assessment and a free health check that we can do to run against your current environment to get a good feel for what's going on today, and then help lay out that roadmap to your multi-cloud, hybrid cloud technology approach. I'd love to invite you down to an executive briefing. We got briefing centers all over the country. Closest to us is McLean. I love Austin. It's a great trip. We can really dive into this and bring some specialists back to help you develop this strategy. Thank you very much.